Egyptian rule, treated much like our ancestors were treated. As they were there, they were under the hand of the masters. And this exodus took place at the hand of a young boy by the name of Moses. How God orchestrates this is spectacular. He says that they were in Egypt, they were a place, in a strange place with people with a strange tongue, but God brought them out. Now, all of us can identify with that because a lot of us are in some strange places and hearing some strange things right now. But I need to tell you, we serve a God that can bring us out. And so Israel has a deliverer by the name of Moses, and Moses is really an Israelite, but he's raised up in the Egyptian home of Pharaoh because his mother had given him up at birth and put him in the Nile, and Pharaoh's daughter was bathing in the Nile, and she saw the baby, and she called for one of her handmaids that just happened to be Moses' mother. And Moses' mother gets to go get her son and nurse her son and raise her son on the enemy's dime. Lord have mercy. And that's how God will do. Even though you might be born at a disadvantage, God will help you to prosper on your enemy's dime. Are y'all going to help me in here? You got to understand what really happens. And so Moses grows up because eventually who you are really comes out. He realizes I can identify more with the Israelites because they're my people. And the Egyptians began to treat him strange. Moses murdered a man. He thought nobody saw it. He went back to his own people and they said, well, what are you going to do? You going to kill us like you did? Moses now leaves, goes on the desert. And he is there and God speaks to him through a bush that was on fire but wasn't burnt up. Lord have mercy. And I think you ought to be asking God today to make you not great, but make you a bush that's on fire and not burned. Don't help me in here. But you got to understand you're really a bush already. You're really on fire already. Because you've been through enough to be crazy, locked up in rust in a straitjacket to be. But God has a way of sustaining you. God told Moses, he said, go tell Pharaoh to let my people go. You see, when God gets ready to deliver you, Pharaoh don't have a choice but to listen. Y'all ain't gonna help me in here. You see, that's the reason why you're here today. That's the reason why you're making it today. It's because God has spoke to a deliverer who is able to speak to the Pharaoh. Because Moses wouldn't be able to say, let my people go, if he hadn't had an ear with Pharaoh because he was raised in his house. Y'all ain't gonna help me in here. God has his way of putting the right people in place to ensure your deliverance when it's time for the enemy to let you go. Moses and Israel go out of Egypt. The Bible says they went out with a high hand. Lord have mercy. They went out. Miriam has a tambourine praising God because they're coming out. But you know what? I can kind of identify with Miriam. Even though people say y'all not be loud in church and everything. But I think when you're coming out, you ought to be loud. I think when God gets ready to what I call bust a move in your life, there ought to be some kind of response in you. As a matter of fact, when you think about how bad off you were and how good God has been along the way, your hands ought to go to waving. You ought to be able to open your mouth to tell God, thank you that you didn't leave me where I was. He's the God of the exit. Moses is going out with the people, leaving Egypt behind. But the verse talks about people of a strange language or strange. So listen to this. Even though they went out rejoicing, God changed Israel while they were in Egypt. Lord have mercy. You see, real deliverance starts in the place that you're bound in. Okay. So while you tripping over what you're going through today, this is the very place that God starts your deliverance process right where you are. That's the reason why I ain't got to be looking crazy and be depressed with my head all hung down. If you know God is getting ready to deliver you, it might get bad, look bad. Your money might still be funny, but guess what? God is already working while you are bound where you are. Can you help me? Help me, please. He's working while you're bound where you are. He changes their language. They begin to see who it is that's the real deliverer. Have you ever been spawned to the staff? The sea responded to the God. Whew. Because God is so much God that he can make water. He can set a boundary for water and make it stack up on its own. Moses and the people went through. Can you imagine how much stuff got your name on it and you ain't even got to it yet? She realized that the Red Sea